Hello, it's Survey Program. Thanks for listening. As you may know, hosting a podcast on our own independent website isn't free, so I've rolled out a way to support the show if you're interested. You can get one bonus episode a month at groupashrike.net. For just $5 a month of support, we'd really appreciate it. If you can't right now, that's all right too. This episode contains serious discussion of adult topics including transphobia, abusive relationships, self-harm, and eating disorders. You've been warned. The music for the show is by Highwell. Thanks for listening. What was the premise of Charlie? Like, what were the angels in Charlie's Angels actually doing?
I'm gonna Google Charlie's Angels because I couldn't tell you. As far as I'm aware, it's a Totally Spies spinoff.
Were they killing people?
Were they? Okay, Grok, were the Charlie's Angels killing people? I'm just gonna Google Charlie's Angels killing people.
Were they...
Okay, I forgot that Google doesn't help anymore.
Yeah, no, were they doing... I mean, I guess if you sat me down and you said you have to describe what Charlie's Angels were doing, I would guess that it was like a Mission Impossible type thing where they were kind of doing like freelance statecraft,
espionage, crime, like maybe a coup somewhere. You know,
that'd be crazy. Imagine if you got cooed by Charlie's Angels. Like you were just trying to build like kind of vulgar incrementalist socialism, and then it's like literally Charlie's Angels came and got you.
Sorry. Despite mixed reviews from critics and a reputation for merely being quote-unquote jiggle television, I'm not reading the rest of the sentence. That's perfect.
Hello, everybody. It's Survey Program.
Oh, God, is it?
Yes.
That's terrifying. Survey Program, everyone's favorite jiggle television on the internet.
No, it's not a video podcast.
Actually, pull the notes up. Oh, fuck, it's not. You're right.
Yeah, we're not. We have said on multiple episodes that we should be doing like a Joe Rogan, type thing, because that's the only type of podcast that people actually pay attention to these days.
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah, but we're not yet Joe Roganing.
I hate it, but I'm also the problem. The only podcasts I can listen to have StarCraft or Magic the Gathering going at the same time as people talking.
Maybe we should do this. I mean, our most popular episode, the rules card episode got 20,000 views, and it had slides. For the people
these notes cannot be used as slides.
No, they absolutely cannot. These notes will be like orders to Charlie's Angels. These notes will be destroyed after use, all of our show notes. This is the secret sauce. You don't ever get to see it. But no, I mean, the thing about the rules episode is Lucretia put in a tremendous amount of effort, and I simply don't want to do that.
No,
But most video
I'm
podcasts...
tired. My tummy hurt a little bit.
Yeah, most video podcasts, they're just sitting in a room with a neon sign and that says live, laugh, love, or whatever.
What's the opposite of that? Die, frown, hate. And we're talking about the Deltarune equivalent of dying, frowning, and hating today. Oh, yeah. Boy, howdy.
That's why they pay me the not very many bucks, is my ability to transition to the topic like that.
Oh yeah. Funny you mentioned transition on this topic.
Yeah. All right. So we are talking about the weird root today. We've engaged with the weird root a number of times over the course of this series, right? It's come up quite often because it's one of the most, textually compelling parts of the game by virtue of providing sort of a dark mirror to the regular root and to understanding it. And by being sort of a reversal of many of the themes of the game, it sort of casts the themes in relief. And obviously, we've been thinking about Undertale quite a bit recently as well, because of the 10th anniversary. There's a sort of a renewed interest in the connections between Undertale and Deltarune, especially with some of the Deltarune type stuff in the 10th anniversary stream, including Noelle showing up, which we all freaked out about.
It was a personal attack on me specifically to not talk to her that many times.
That was so funny to just walk by her every time.
I mean, it's fantastic trolling. I have to respect it.
Yeah. You know, whenever people got upset about that, I'm just like, you understand that there's not anything there, right? Like if you were talking, like,
they're not talking to her because there's nothing,
right? It's not like they made stuff for the stream that they're not showing you. Like they made it all. You got to see everything there was. Like the skipping was part of the script. It's like I can't understand being upset by like not being allowed to like walk through the cardboard facade at the back of a theater set. It's like this isn't Boundary Break. Like there's not some sort of secret other game back there. Like you got to see everything that got made. It's all paper thin.
Mm-hmm. They were spending the whole stream showing us how paper thin it was. It was a beautiful bit of performance art, I think.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of interesting because it's kind of like Petscop in that way, right? For those who aren't familiar, Petscop's
I don't know shit about Petscop.
Ah, darn. Well, it's kind of interesting because I feel like the Weird Root is playing in that same sort of like kind of, I guess the kids call it analog horror these days, of like, you know, like Been Drowned or Petscop or these other things that like make a game, you know, make sort of familiar game tropes or game visuals creepy. But like the specific thing about those is like they're not playable games, right? They're not actually things you can download and play. They're video presentations of a game being played, right? They're kind of descendant of Let's Plays. And the 10th anniversary stream is very similar to that. But it's actually interesting because I feel like Petscop has a lot in common with Deltarune. And I think you might be interested in checking it out because it's a lot of, I don't know, it's a lot of that sort of like oblique references to trauma and like filtering it through a video game understanding of it that I think plays into the Weird Root as well. And, you know, Undertale's No Mercy route has some similarities with it, right? But I think that there's a very big difference between No Mercy and the Weird Root that I wanted to start on, because there's like I don't know, with the Weird Root feels like a defined story, like it's a story about characters, whereas the No Mercy route is kind of a story about video games, right?
Yeah, that I think that's a pretty fair way to put it. Yeah, the No Mercy is very much like a commentary on player behaviors specifically, and it is a story outside of that, but I think that is one of the big things that it's doing, which is so funny. We had a friend over just the other day, sat her down in front of Undertale, be like, you should check this game out, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna kill everything. She knows nothing about it.
I mean, I think that's, you know, anyway. I know on my first playthrough I killed Toriel, right? Like on, you know, when you're used to engaging with video games in a certain way, that's just sort of the natural approach, right? Is to use the battle system to attack. And, you know, even with my, like, even with experience, even hearing, you reading the text commentary that you don't have to kill people in this game, I thought, okay, but I have to attack a little bit to get to the whatever the next step is where I don't have to kill them, right? Nope, she just dies.
Yep, she just takes a shit ton of damage out of nowhere right at the end of the fight.
Yeah, and you know, we talked a little bit about this in the episode about the Moon, the 1999 game, where there's this sort of like player avatar that's going through this world and causing rampage in the name of leveling up and getting stronger. And you know, the No Mercy route just feels like a maximalist expression of like, you know, player agency in an RPG, right? Where Undertale really is a game that's about like breaking down what are the things that we take for granted about RPG worlds, right? Like what if all the monsters in the dungeon in an RPG actually had a society and like had things to say and feelings about their place in the dungeon? And the No Mercy route in Undertale is sort of the ultimate expression of, okay, but what if you the player didn't care about that? And, you know, what if there was a force that entered this world that acted like a traditional RPG protagonist instead of a thinking, feeling, you know, empathetic person?
It allows the very, I I don't know, fun and quirky and sort of character forward version of the game to stand a little bit taller, because the game is giving you the agency to ignore that.
Exactly.
You
You're
are
not on
making a
rails.
choice to engage with it that way.
Yeah, you're not on rails,
Um,
and so it feels more valuable when you get that good ending because you know that you could have gone a different way. And it's pretty remarkable, really, how responsive Undertale feels despite the limited amount of tracks that you're on, right?
yeah.
And the weird route is a very different experience than that, right? It's not a dynamic, like, there's not really like a dynamic place where you get to sort of smoothly transition from one to another, right? It's not a natural expression of just fighting, right? Actually, just fighting everyone is a separate thing that I don't hear a lot of people talk
Yes.
about, right? Where if you fight, if you don't spare, you do get a different experience in this game, but it's kind of a lonely and not really fully talked about experience. I see
Yeah.
almost no analysis actually of sort of the quote unquote violence route in Deltarune, right? Where the story beats play out almost exactly the same, but some characters die that otherwise wouldn't, and like Tenna and
And yeah,
Jackington.
some characters die, and not recruiting the encounters means that your castle town is very lonely.
Yeah, it's very
'Cause
it never stops feeling empty and sort of dim and strange.
yeah, because like I mean, there are some guaranteed recruits. I think that at the end of chapter one, regardless of what you did, Rosse ends up recruiting them, I think.
Hmm.
But moving on from there, there is just more and more opportunity for this place to be very sad and empty compared to all of the experiences you've had outside of it.
And it's interesting because I think people compare the weird route to No Mercy, but it's actually that road of not recruiting anyone that feels more like
Yeah.
the organic analog of No Mercy. And it's one that I think is underexplored as a potential because it's only going to get more divergent as the chapters go on if players aren't recruiting everyone, right? And I think that's really underconsidered as an element of maybe that's actually going to be more of the expression of No Mercy, because the weird route is a totally different thing.
Oh yeah.
You can end up on No Mercy. You can intuitively understand how to do that. Just kill everything, right? And the weird route, I mean, it's so hidden that it took the like 24 to 48 hours after chapter 2 released for people to even discover how to get into it. It took some data mining to find it, right? It's actually
Yeah.
it's more of like a creepy secret Easter egg.
It feels like a video game creepypasta. It feels like some shit that like you'd log on to, oh my god, dating myself, but like gamewinners.com or something, and somebody would be posting their like fake guide to how to get a video game secret, and it's all these really, specific things that if you do this and this and this in the Mortal Kombat tower, Sonya Blade will be naked or something.
Yeah.
But in this case, much more horrifying.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that on, a lot of video game forums, including, since we were talking about the 10th anniversary, the Starman forum, right? There's a lot of, ever since there were Let's Plays, there have been fake Let's Plays, right? Or, kind of people exploiting that kind of veracity of the gameplay experience to create these fake ideas. And what's interesting is in the extended material around Deltarune, we get some references to that as well, because Noelle is the kind of gamer who is looking for those strange secrets and like breaking games and like swapping rumors and trying to find like creepy stuff. So I guess let's transition this to like, who is Noelle, right? Like and why is Noelle so tied up in this strange, Easter eggy route?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because it's not just that she seeks that stuff out, but it seems to find her even when she's not really looking.
Yeah.
But who is Noelle is a very broad question. Which I think that you can start with, like, where is her place in the town, and then from there move to what kind of a person is she, which is a hell of a question.
Yeah.
In the town, she is the mayor's daughter. She is Chris's childhood friend from a wealthier family. She sings in the church choir. She is a model student. She passes for normie. And yet, who she is as a person, I think, is very different from that surface level image, right?
Yeah. She's got this, she's got this image of, she's the straight A student. She's very straight laced. She's very reserved, but she's not that at all. It's a facade.
Yeah, she's very into like weird shit. I mean, not to tip too much about where like it's all going, but like Noelle is the type of player who would hear about the weird route and be like, well, I have to see that immediately.
Yeah, I've got to go play it. Right. That's exactly what she did in Dragon Blazers. That's exactly what she did in Cat Petters, right? She was like trying to make the most fucked up worlds possible in her video games.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that's been, unfolding over the course of the game, and it's hinted at as early as Chapter 1, is that there was a past closeness between Noelle and Kris, right? They used to be a lot closer than they are now. And they all, and this gets sort of expounded upon in Chapter 3 with much more detail, but the Dreamer and Holiday families used to be much closer and used to be sort of, one cohesive extended family unit where they all had close relationships with one another. And there's this sort of profound sense of emptiness and loss that pervades Noelle's relationship with Kris now because of that.
Yeah, she's thinking or talking all the time about like just wanting things to be like they were before, kind of, or like wondering why things are so different or how they're so different. Because Kris is such an enigma to her. Yeah.
And she's the one who notices first that something is different about Kris, right? Like, partially because Kris is actually speaking to her, which appears to be something that had not happened for a long time prior to the events of this game. And so, like, tell me a little bit about what we know about Noelle's past from the blog posts, the ARG stuff in the Spamton sweepstakes.
I think that the big things that relate to it all relates to the weird route. I think the whole Spamton sweepstakes is all kind of tying into it, but the stuff that really tells us like what about her makes her so central to this is she has had such a close relationship with Des, and specifically Des was where her love of being scared came from.
Yeah.
Where from watching horror movies as a little kid and being comforted by her when she was scared, which you have that impulse in you, which is how you end up with a relationship that it seems like she had with Kris, where when the four of them are hanging out, Kris is basically tormenting her, like doing all kinds of shit to scare her. And then, same as with the horror movie, Des comes in and comes to her rescue and kicks Chris's ass.
Yeah, with a wiffle ball bat.
Yeah, which, there's the one story about that in her blog in the Spamton sweepstakes, but I note that the dented wiffle bat is in December's room, alongside a whole bunch of other, like, dented objects, which could mean anything or nothing, but I feel like you could interpret that as gesturing towards the idea that is not an isolated incident. Yeah. She's been hitting Kris with her shit all the time because Kris is a menace to her little sister.
Like, notably, the flavor text you get when looking at the collection of dented objects is that looking at this stuff makes your head hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also very similar to a lot of the flavor text that appears during the Knight fight. And again, just as we say whenever the Knight first comes up in any episode, the official editorial position of the Survey Program podcast is that the Knight is Des, and we're just going to move on and not equivocate about it very long.
Yeah, if we have to have a fucking debate about it every time it comes up, then this is not going to be a Deltarune podcast. It's going to be Is Des the Knight the podcast?
Yeah. And so there's these gaps in, so there's this expression of the past, and then in Chapter 2, Noelle is in the Dark World, alongside that blue guy, Burghley, whatever his name is. Burghley. And a series of impossible events plays out to create an alternate path through the story. And so I know you sort of laid out here in the in the outline a quick summary, and I think it might be useful to just return to that and lay it out just so we can all be on the same page about what we're talking about. So give me the lightning round. How do you get into the Weird Root summary?
Yeah, lightning round. When Noelle joins the party and it's just you and Noelle, you can backtrack and there will be more enemy encounters in which you need to use Ice Shock as the spell's name, I believe, right?
Yep.
To freeze all of them. If you freeze all of them, you are able to buy a Thorn Ring from Spamton. Actually, does this come before or after the other ring?
You get a series of, you get two, I think it's 2 rings. Now I'm revealing myself as a Touhou'd.
Yeah. No, same. There's a Thorn Ring from Spamton, and then there's the
before that there's
ring.
The other ring, the freeze ring.
Yeah, from the Addison.
Yeah.
Where he wants
it's
to sell
2 wings.
You. Yeah.
So
2 wings.
So you start.
Angel?
It's 2 rings. So you start with no ring. You
Yes.
start, and then you encounter the Addison, who's like making oblique comments about you dating.
Yes, and you have to tell him that you are something other than friends.
Yeah.
At which point he will try to sell you a freeze ring, and that you can't afford. So you have Noelle do something to him, after which he's not there anymore, and you have the ring.
Yeah. He's dead. He's fucking dead.
He's fucking dead.
He's fucking dead. That fucking Addison is dead. Noelle used ad block.
Great timing.
Yeah, and then as you escalate more and more, you like encounter Spamton's dumpster, and he's telling you how many enemies there are left. And then you get the Thorn Ring, which unlocks the most powerful spell, the fatal Snowgrave spell.
Yeah.
And as you're advancing through this, through this series of events, you're kind of like, in the regular route, right? As you're progressing through these puzzles, right? You're helping Noelle, like Noelle is like addressing her fear of mice and like getting exposure therapy of it through the annoying mouse rooms. But and there is a little bit of like, there is some discomfort there, but it's like it's unavoidable actually. No matter what you do, at some point Chris is gonna mischievously make mice come out of the hole and scare Noelle. Yeah. Right? Like it's a return to form for the childhood pranks that Chris would play. But it's much more benign in the normal route, right? It's sort of 2 halves of the same coin, but in the weird route, this exposure, you're scaring her in a much more real sense, and you're like pushing her to her limit and making her even think about killing Chris, like making her even think about like shocking Chris with the shock gates, as you're pushing her towards them again and again to try to get her to freeze the puzzle to destroy it.
Specifically, it's not just that you're scaring her, but it's that rather than her overcoming her fear of mice through exposure, it's Chris is telling her what to do, and is not explaining it, just making her listen to their orders.
Yeah.
Telling her to proceed constantly.
And you're like, rather than in the normal route, where Noelle addresses her fears, but like develops as a character and, expresses her own independence, and even, at the climax of chapter 2, like sort of expresses that she doesn't want to just be a pawn in Queen's game anymore. The weird route is about like molding Noelle into a NPC, into a RPG party member.
Yeah.
Into the girl.
Yes. And then, grinding on enemies, making her attack stronger.
Yeah, exactly. And you're engaging this RPG loop, this traditional RPG loop that Deltarune otherwise avoids, where it becomes kind of a slog, where you're counting up amounts of enemies left, where you're leveling up your spells, right? Where you're engaging in this kind of RPG gameplay, and it all comes to a head with a conflict with Burghley, right? Where the real world reimposes itself on this transformed dynamic of Noelle as an NPC.
Yeah. And Burghley tries to stop you either way, but it's much more serious in the weird route. And if I remember
Yes.
correctly, the fight with Burghley is your last chance to eject, and to go back to normalcy, where you I believe that you say that you are trying to protect Noelle, and then Burghley asks from what, and if you say from you, then Burghley goes back to being kind of a shithead, and you have like the potential for just a normal boss fight, basically.
And actually, I do want to put a pin in this here, because I actually want to talk about this. The weird thing, one of the weird things about the weird route is that there are so many off ramps. Like,
yes.
you can like after you've started a no mercy route, you can abort it to a neutral route, right? But like you still can't get like the good ending, the best ending after doing it, right? Whereas you can abort the weird route and suddenly everybody just starts acting like it didn't happen, basically. Like the regular path reasserts itself immediately, and you don't get any of the the changed cutscenes or anything. Like, it's just so strange.
You get small, unique little bits of story for various different like off ramps.
Yes,
but
you get something that happens when you abort the weird route, but after you abort, it's just like you're just playing the game regular style.
Yeah, and once you have aborted it, there is no way back on, which I think is kind of important to like what it could be representing narratively.
Yeah, and so you have this confrontation with Burghley. It's your last off ramp in chapter 2. If you don't, you make frozen chicken with your side chick.
Side chick because Burghley's the main chick.
I mean, and it's and instead of the main villain of the route being Queen, like the basically at this point the rest of the chapter just completely implodes, right? Like everything goes off the rails. Like Spamton usurps Queen, gets the Neo body without your direct intervention, litters Peepus all over the place. And it's so weird because it's like it's scary, but it's also really silly. Like chapter 2's weird route is really silly because of Spamton's involvement. It's so stupid. There's Spamton portraits breathing fire at you instead of Queen ones. There's Peepus everywhere. Like,
I mean, I think that it's like a big part of what is so compelling about Spamton. It was so fun to watch my girlfriend play the game for the first time because she only knew of Spamton from like he's like a sexy man kind of and like memes. And so when she played that game for the first time, she kept going like, "Why the fuck is this guy so scary? Like what? Like
he's really
so silly,
creepy,
but that character is fucking scary."
Yeah. We've become kind of inured to it, and I think one of the things that I like to do in this podcast is examine the stuff that we started to take for granted over the last 7 years of Deltarune. And one of them is that Spamton is a creepy guy. Spamton is creepy and strange. In addition to being really funny, like Spamton is really creepy and does have a lot of that sort of creepypasta analog horror element to him. Like his when you first encounter that shop screen, it's got the strange waltz playing and like all the glitching stuff, and it's like, this is fucking weird.
Yeah,
all the references to Mike are very much like Ben drowned. It's so strange.
Yeah, I know, right? Even though, as the audience knows now, Mike is just that Touhou character. I'm going to Google Touhou Mike and show you the joke that I'm making.
Yeah, this is another time where your humble host reveals herself as not having any Touhou experience. Here,
check it out. This is Mike.
That's Mike? Okay.
Yeah, it's Mike. That's Mike Gotokuji. So fucking I can say names. Mike Gotokuji.
Okay, so that does look like a certain orange cat character from a certain webcomic.
Yeah.
A certain orange cat character from a certain webcomic who gets an Undertale motif in a certain part of that certain webcomic.
Mm-hmm.
And so you progress through chapter 2, right? And you beat the chapter. The regular party gets reunited again. Susie, like Noelle, basically just quits. She just sort of like rage. She just sort of rage quits. She's just like, I'm going home, and just like shuts herself out from Chris and from the player. And then Susie says something to her that we don't know about, that we can't see. And notably that Ralsei doesn't prompt us to eavesdrop in, unlike in the regular route, right? Where Ralsei does prompt the player's attention to the scene between them. Ralsei is aware of what's going on in the weird route, like pretty clearly. You know, if you're on the weird route in chapter 3, when talking about who's going to the festival, like, he's very insistent that you shouldn't go, that going with Noelle is a bad idea, right? The scene with them at the tea table in chapter 4 is very different. Like, it's extremely clear that Ralsei is aware of the weird route, which is a strange complication that I think doesn't get addressed enough when people are talking about it. Like, you know, this is one of my favorite things to wonder about is, what does Ralsei know? When does he know it? And why is he acting the way he's acting about what he knows?
Yeah, it's very strange because it seems plausible that he just knows everything and is electing to not do anything about it other than kind of nudge Kris towards stopping.
Yeah. And so moving on from chapter 2 then, as we move into chapter 3, you get the secret route in chapter 3, which for players who didn't encounter the weird route organically almost serves as sort of a signpost, right? It's sort of teaching you how to do the weird route. The forbidden path began with ice magic.
And there's stuff in it that is sort of like the Spamton sweepstakes gestures towards, like the maze part with not Noelle in the sword route. Is that what we're calling it?
The sword route, yeah.
Yeah. The maze part there is, you know, gesturing towards stuff that she talks about on her blog in the Spamton sweepstakes, which is also, I think, sort of one of a number of hints that, hey, the Spamton sweepstakes stuff is important to the story here. Like, yeah, it is another set of hints towards this.
It's a very rare example of a well-executed ARG where this stuff, I think, genuinely enriches your understanding if you're a sicko and you want to learn more, but you can enjoy the game just fine without any of it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a I mean, you know, in the chapter 3 sword route, it feels like you're acting out both Noelle's past experiences with breaking RPGs and like a step-by-step like town annihilator simulator, basically, like with characters standing in for various light world figures that you're just destroying one by one to become stronger. And, you know, and eventually you have to sacrifice Susie and Ralsei as well. And I think that says some very ominous shit about where the weird route is going as the chapters continue on. And that also speaks to how there's so many parallels between Kris and the Knight and Kris and Des, right? And, you know, again, one and the same from our perspective. Doesn't make a lot of sense if it's not. But there's so many parallels between Kris and Des, right? And they feel almost like two halves of the same coin, and they are collaborators in this relationship, as we discover throughout chapter 3 and 4, right? And they are, you know, there is some element of working together, and there's also some element of connection or a modeling of the self that Kris has with Des, right? And so
yeah,
I'm interested in hearing some of your thoughts about like what was Kris and Des's relationship like, and like why is this important when we're understanding Noelle and understanding the weird route?
It's kind of a wide open question exactly what their relationship was, but I think that there is enough stuff in the game that indicates that it is more than just like Des was Kris's like childhood friend's older sister. In particular, there's lines from Caddy and also the way Kris behaves around Queen that sort of, and Carol, that point towards a pattern of behavior with Kris of obediently rolling over for bigger, meaner, usually older girls, seeking acceptance or approval from them. And I think that it seems pretty likely that it's a similar story with Des. That Des is kind of a person Kris is modeling themselves after. You see they share a lot of like poses in different animations. The point, the crossed arms, the running slash with the sword. some of Chris's animations in the waiter outfit. And there's also like really subtle stuff that I didn't notice until I think the third or fourth time I was seeing chapter 3. Tenna Tenna's dialogue indicates that in the rhythm game, Chris is supposed to be playing the piano.
Yeah.
And Chris is not. Chris is playing the guitar.
Yeah.
That's his instrument. And their clothes in the Dark World match the color scheme of her room. And I think my personal favorite, the most deranged one here, is that the nickname KRISMAS, which they seem to accept, is just a synonym for December holiday.
Yeah.
They like being called the same thing as Des.
Yeah.
Which is so much, and so transgender.
It is. It's very transgender, and so obviously we can refer to our excellent episode 6, the Man Country Power Hour, for some more
absolutely required reading,
required listening. Go back and listen to that if you haven't yet. But also, you know, we talked a little bit about some of those visual similarities because they're kind of almost parodied or sort of farcically reflected in Rules Card as well in our Rules episode, and which is so stupid and so weird. But,
it's awesome. That, oh my god, that episode, my brain was exploding. I was like, telling me all this shit.
I can't believe it. I can't believe all of that goddamn nonsense. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that it feels like Chris is sort of learned how to express themselves and modeled themselves around December, right? Where there's that nickname, there's the dressing in the dark world, there's the gestures, the mannerisms, the playing guitar, the kind of, destructive experience, the fact that they're part of a conspiracy together.
Yeah. I mean, it's, clearly, again, with the assumption that December is the night, clearly, even after all of this, she means so much to Chris.
Yeah.
Like, in a way that I'm not saying this, I'm not going to claim this as a universal experience, but it is definitely a type of experience of, like, gendered socialization that, like, a growing kid who is transgender can have, where, like, the older sister is someone they really want the approval of.
Yeah.
Not, their own older sister or the older sister of their friends or whatever.
But this experience, right, where Des is gone now, it's reflective of a lot of the emptiness that pervades Chris's life, right? Where, there's their side of the room is empty, right? It's conspicuously empty. They don't have their own clothes that they care for. Their relationship with their older sibling, their older brother and Noelle's older sister that mattered a lot to them is gone, right? Those are gone. Their relationship to Noelle is gone.
I think about that line with the drawer with the $5 in it, where, if you don't take it, or if you try to take it again or something, it says you've already taken enough. And I can't help but, like, read that into whatever happens to December,
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever happened, there's clearly a profound sense of loss and guilt that pervades Chris's life. And, like, why is Chris acting this way? Why is Chris rebelling against us? Why is Chris working at cross purposes to us? Was one of the first open questions of the game, right? It's one of the first, it ended chapter 1, and it's one of the first mysteries that we had in this game. And it's becoming more and more evident that it is out of some sort of sense of guilt and obligation regarding what happened to December. And so whatever multifaceted web of obligations Chris has that are beyond our sight, that includes some sort of collaborative relationship with Carol as well, it all has a nexus in that missing element. And I think what's interesting about the weird root is that it begins to is that through the weird root and through the player's control and influence over Chris, becoming stronger in the weird root or overriding more of their impulses, it's creating a scenario where Chris acts more knight-like, acts more like the sword-wielding, faceless RPG, destructive RPG hero, more like the hero from Moon, right? Where you're blazing this trail of destruction, and you're treating Chris's child, and Chris is treating their childhood friend like the NPC, like the girl, like the romantic interest. And I think a lot of what comes up in the discussion of the weird root is about like what's the nature of the soul, which is I do like one of the headers in your outline is what is the nature of the soul? It's just a classic philosophical question. It's transient. It's shifting like water.
What is this header? What is the nature of the soul? Next header: does an agentic self exist distinct from an essential self?
and so it is super funny that like the player Chris dichotomy makes us ask these like fundamental timeless philosophical questions. But there's something in the chapter 3 secret route that we that really adds a really significant wrinkle to this discussion, right? Which is about when you're on the weird route, there's a, is it fun, Chris, playing around like this? That's why you're searching for them, aren't you? The shadow crystals and the shadow mantle that I'm holding. Do you honestly think it'll get you what you want? No, part of you is just enjoying this, isn't it? The same part of you that enjoyed yesterday, knowing you could say it wasn't really you. Oh, don't make that sour face. I can see in the dark, The question is, can you? That's prior to the Shadow Mantle Holder fight in Chapter 3, and you get that line about enjoying yesterday if you're in the weird route. And I think that adds such a profound wrinkle to the simple idea, to the simple takeaway that many people have, that the weird route represents exclusively player control over Chris, right? That does not represent any potential intrusive thought or any potentiality for Chris to be that violent and destructive person.
Yeah, which is it's so interesting to me because in a way the within that read the player is doing the thing that the Shadow Mantle is talking about of Chris isn't doing this. This is me. Therefore Chris is absolved of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that the richest reads of Deltarune as a text within and without of the weird route assume that all of the choices that are available to Chris are genuine impulses that they have.
Yeah.
Like things that they in that moment feel like is a thing that they could do, that they might want to do.
And looking forward to chapter 4, I mean, one of the text options that you get is please no, which is like, you get proceed and please no. Like you get something directed at the player, at the player, like this option of thoughts is like one option to proceed and one option that's like begging the player, not even a dialogue option. Right.
Yeah.
If
I remember correctly, that is the dialogue that if you choose proceed, you will... I mean, we're getting a little ahead, but if you choose proceed, you'll exit the vents and enter that scene. And if you choose please no, Noelle doesn't hear it because Chris is saying it to the soul who gets stuck back in the vent.
Yep. And I think that's... And Chris then just like grabs Noelle and runs away at that point, and, the weird route is aborted. But it's like those lines from the Shadow Mantle Holder or ERAM, if you prefer, are they are
VRAM actually. Sorry, that's a terrible joke.
That is. But I think they sort of interface with the No Mercy route that we were talking about earlier, where people, I think, rather lazily took the No Mercy route as an example of a diegetic player exclusively overriding Frisk. Or of a diegetic, or of Kara overriding Frisk completely, right? Because Kara's influence is felt throughout the No Mercy route, and that element of like who is in control in the No Mercy route is one of the sort of the messiest and still most controversial elements of Undertale analysis to this day.
A hot topic of scholarly debate.
A hot topic of scholarly debate, right? There, we're pouring through the pages of the Talmud trying to figure it out. And the the it just feels like we're blazing that trail, and a lot of what's happening now and a lot of the open questions now are sort of a commentary on some of the biggest open questions from Undertale and elucidating them more deeply. And I think you and I both agree that the game is much more interesting and the story is much more compelling if we see the soul not just as a gamified representation of player influence in a video game, not just as a purely metatextual element, but also as a metaphorical element for the negative, violent, and self-destructive thoughts that many teenagers have and struggle with, especially when they've been through trauma.
Yes. In fairness, I think it's not purely that, because there are a lot of things that, as the soul directing Kris to make decisions, there are a lot of things that you can make choices for that will make Kris happy. But in the weird route, it is agency run amok. It is, you are at this point in your life where you are seeing that you can make your own decisions and choose your own path and have to live with what happens when you do that. It's freedom as horror almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a commentary on, freedom throughout Deltarune is not strictly good, right? Freedom seems to represent this temptation for destruction and self-destruction to many characters. And while to Susie and Gerson, it represents this ability to create your own story in a positive way, to to the Shadow Mantle Holder, to Jevil, to Spamton, to Des, it represents this destructive spiral, right? This ability to overwrite your own life in pursuit of power. And and that, again, it's sort of syncretic, right? It's a mix of the game element and the metaphorical element, where throughout these games, game concepts represent emotional through lines.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with it. I'm feeling it. Snapping my fingers that.
And so I guess that gets to your next header question of, does an agentic self exist distinct from an essential self? Do you want to elaborate on that?
I kind of, it's a thing that's come up with a number of people talking about the Weird Route and about this game in general, which is that this sort of split between the self as your actions and your direction, and like the self as what you experience, is something that I've heard a number of people who have dealt with like serious depression or like episodes of mental illness or psychosis or mania talk about, where it feels like there is a you that is doing things and there is a you that is feeling things, and these are separate. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they are in alignment on what they feel and like their desires, but they are, the action and the reaction are not connected in that way.
Yeah.
Which I think is, it. Whether or not that is the exact text of the Weird Route in general, I think it's such an interesting thing to be holding in your head, thinking about it, and about Kris as like a troubled kid who is carrying so much hurt and has nowhere to put it.
And that gets to some of the questions of like why. So if you are taking it if you're taking it as an expression, that the Weird Route is an expression of impulsive thoughts, negative thoughts, Kris's worst impulses, right? Then why? Why would they do this? Why would they, backslide in this way and create this negative scenario that's clearly self-harm as well as harming Noelle and others,
absolutely.
Right?
They're miserable throughout it. They're hurting, especially in the stuff in Chapter 4.
So, Chapter 4.
After Chapter 3, where the Weird Route is, it really only exists as an undercurrent. There's a couple of altered lines, and that's about it. Chapter 4, its Weird Route is mainly one really big, explosive scene, and then small little fragments of fallout throughout the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it is maybe my favorite scene in the game. It is so lurid and uncomfortable and mesmerizing.
It's
God,
like
I love it.
if you're uncomfortable by the sort of voyeuristic chapter 4 scene where, you know, Chris is in the closet
Oh my
battling
God.
their
Which
demons while
I
girls
had
are
to
doing
lay
Yuri
down on the
outside.
ground. I had to lay down on the ground because my tummy hurt during that.
Yeah, and it's like and it's like the alternate side, the B side, as you know, in the game files, the weird root is called side B, which is funny, but in the B side version of that scene is a million times worse. I mean, I was shaking the first few times I watched it. Like it's crazy. And it is, yeah, it's one of the most emotionally intense parts of the whole of the whole Toby Fox ludography. Like it is
Probably
so,
the boldest thing they've ever done, like as an author.
yeah, it's so intense. And you know, it represents what seems like, and what the soundtrack appears to be emphasizing is like a point of no return, for just, you know, something this really dark, toxic relationship being, you know, formalized, like that you know, there's that, you know, you might have been playing around breaking a video game in chapter 2, right? But it's extremely serious and it's extremely emotional now. And so, you know, if you're taking what we were saying earlier about these being expressions of you know, of intrusive thoughts, of negative desires, then why does Chris do all that shit? Or why are we able to facilitate all that shit, right? Why is the player able to facilitate all that shit? What are some of the potential takeaways from it?
So I do we want to describe the whole Weird Route Chapter 4 scene, or do we want to just tell people you got to go see this one?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing listening to this podcast?
Yeah, no,
honestly,
I think that we can leave summary out of it and just say, go watch it, have a bad fucking time.
I think unlike chapter 2, which I did think it was important to go back and sort of recontextualize, I think this is still a lot fresher in people's minds, at least at the time of release of this episode, because that is still only a few months old at this point.
Yeah. So I have a variety of thoughts about why Chris might be doing this. Some of it are things that live in implication and interpretation and, you know, possibility. And I have one absolute fact at the end of that.
Hit me with the interpretations first, and then we'll get the absolute fact.
I think that the first one, the big one, is that Chris is grieving, and grief does bad things to a heart. You can see this in Asgore as well, I think, both two very divorced characters. Chris is not divorced, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but you know, as we talked about a bit in the episode about Carol and Toriel, you know, the stuff that the older dreamers and holidays are going through is kind of reflected in the experiences of their children.
Yeah. And which is especially fucked because they really seem to be happy to see Chris and Noelle together again. You know, they want to encourage it. They don't see how weird it is.
Yeah.
But so I think that an important thing to understand about Chris's relationships with women is that most of their meaningful relationships with girls in their life get sorted into two categories. One is useless adults, like their mom or Undyne or whatever. The other is bigger, meaner girls who can boss them around. And then there's Noelle, like the one girl Chris has a strong, meaningful relationship who does not fit into those categories and is not like Des. And I think that's one way to interpret this is lashing out from grief over losing Des and Noelle not being a replacement for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think another way to look at this is that, I mean, we can see from a number of things throughout the game that Chris's self-image is awful. Lines like "you have already taken enough," the mirror line with Susie, which I think really implies just such a struggle with self-image and like accepting themselves. And they see their own weakness in Noelle reflected back at them. And I think that they also see their own cruelty. reflected back at them in Burghley.
Yeah.
And so they have this desire for Noelle to be stronger and for Burghley to be literally iced out, because they're seeing these negative parts of themselves in these two, that they're trying to counteract by asserting themselves through control and abuse. And I think that you can also see this as literally just trying to shut out any relationship. They used to be close with Noelle, and they are keeping that relationship. I mean, they're close in a sense in the weird route, but not in a sense of emotional closeness, of tenderness or understanding or empathy or anything like that. They're refusing to become friends with Susie, essentially. Like, if you play through the weird route, it is very clear. Susie and Susie really wants to be Chris's friend, and Chris is not reciprocating that in the weird route.
That's one of the saddest things about the weird route, honestly, is the fact is Susie getting frozen out, not literally, although probably eventually.
Burghley getting frozen out literally as well.
Yeah, but Susie getting pushed away from connecting with either of them, in a sort of reflection of how Chris is pushed away in the normal route, right? Of how Chris is sort of separated from Noelle and Susie, in their scenes together in the normal route. And so it's kind of an interesting analog, but like, I don't know, Susie, it hurts so bad.
It hurt my tummy, hurt my heart. And I have a fact.
What's the fact?
A very true fact about the story. As a kid, Chris learned that if you torment Noelle, December will show up and give you attention.
That's true. That's true.
Isn't that just fucking rotten? Yeah. Isn't that just the worst? I love it. It's so bad.
That is undeniably true. Absolutely.
I think that you can synthesize all of these to have an image of, this is how Chris is dealing with grief and guilt. They're tearing down Noelle, who reminds them of Des, but is not Des. They're shutting out. They're putting Burghley in a fucking coma, and Burghley is replacing Azriel as their gaming partner. They are seeing the bad, or the parts of themselves that they consider bad, in those two, and is trying to correct them, making Noelle stronger and Burghley, incapable of being mean. It's self-harm as much as it is harming anyone else, and it is, I think, an expression of inability to deal with that grief and that guilt, because Chris is a teenager and you just don't have the life experience to cope with that kind of thing. Yeah. And the most fucked up part about all of it, the whole way through, is that Noelle just goes along with it. She doesn't just go along with it. There's an optional scene in the Chapter 4 Weird Route where you can think about Noelle and see what she's thinking, and she is thanking Chris for this.
That gave me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh yeah, the fucking wiggly igglies. I think I just made that one up. That's not.
I don't know that that's one, but maybe we're gonna make it a thing.
Yeah.
But okay, so why does Noelle go along with it?
I mean, I think it's kind of bad to. It feels bad to say, but it is very much implied. She kind of likes it. Like,
she loves horror movies. She loves creepy. She loves creeping herself out. She has fond memories of being pranked and being messed with as a kid, right? Like she's someone who seems to really enjoy pushing her own boundaries, and obviously you get positive expressions of that in the normal route, but like she's someone who likes to find her own limits, right?
Yes, and she's a teenager. She doesn't know where those limits are yet.
Yeah.
And furthermore, it just does not seem like she has a fully developed like social mechanism for saying no. She can't stand up to her mother. She just like compulsively agrees to go to the festival with Burghley when he demands it. She goes along with every single thing that Chris tells her to do on the weird route. It just seems like this is not a lesson or a life skill that has been ingrained in her, like the ability to stand up for herself. Probably as a
we see
result of
that.
having an extremely controlling upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Like she's, she has very limited abilities to express her own autonomy at home, clearly. And you do see that. You see that with as you pointed out here, with Burghley, right? That this is how Burghley treats her as well.
Yes. Although with a big difference being that Burghley wants her to be strong, but just strong enough, just a little less than her.
Yeah.
He wants her to be his number two.
Yeah.
Whereas I have no idea what the end game for making Noelle stronger is for Chris. Maybe there is no end game. It's possible. I mean, there a way that you can read the weird route, although it does seem that there is a conspiratorial angle to it. There is some kind of goal. A way that you can read this is that it is just impulse. It's just action, which is why it comes with such strong regret in the implied scenes between chapter 3 and 4 in the chapter 4 weird route, or Chris ripping their fucking heart out and throwing it in the trash can and kicking the shit out of it.
Yeah. Which is
and I think sorry,
which is self-harm. It's self-harm.
It is.
Nobody, and like Asgore's outside the door and has no idea what to do about it, right? Which has some troubling implications for what Chris has been like over the years, right?
It gives you the idea that whether or not Chris is like quote unquote weird routing throughout growing up, this is a thing that's happened with them.
Yeah. The blood stain on the floor, the bird cage, the habit of disappearing into the bathroom for long periods at a time, it's not good. it's bad. And so
especially I don't know if there's any substance to this, but especially thinking about the way that with the soul out, Chris does a lot of impulsive eating. As a person who did a lot of vomiting during puberty, it makes me wonder if that is a possible implication of them spending such long times locking themselves in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like they struggle with keeping food down.
Whether or not any of this is like literal, I think it all is in a metaphorical space that I think can be very clearly understood, right? Like this is all in a very, I think it's really kind of a masterclass at, without being explicitly about any one type of teenage trauma. It is a cloud roiling around it, right? It's a cloud that is immediately recognizable as being in the same space. And especially like as a trans person and Chris being non-binary, being transgender, like there's a lot of like profound fear and horror specific to that in the weird root as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like if you wanted to summarize most of Chris's behavior throughout the weird route, you can basically just say these are all of the stereotypical fears trans women have about themselves, about like the person they don't want to be, controlling and manipulative and scary and like a violating abuser.
Yeah.
And it's so comphet. It's so Chris refusing the kind of, I don't know, like weird GNC situationship with Susie, and the weird flirting with Burghley, to just sort of play out a caricature of an abusive cishet monogamous marriage where they are absolutely playing the role of like the man.
Yeah.
Which is just so wretched. And it's even more wretched because it seems like this is like a relief to some of the adults. It like to us, this is the weird route, and to them, it seems like what they're seeing is, oh, the freaky ass like human dreamer kid is finally acting normal.
Absolutely. That ending phone call from Carol is one of the biggest gut punches in the whole game. Where
it's so bad.
I mean, and like Rudy's supportiveness is the same. Where Rudy is communicating Noelle's excitement about going to the festival. But I mean, the ending phone call from Carol is just it's just devastating
because it's so normal.
Yes,
it's so completely normal, but all of the context that we have, it makes it sound like, I don't know, like a death threat, like someone telling you there's a bomb under your bed, just like a signal that the end is right around the corner.
Absolutely, and yeah. So it's extremely thematically dense, right? Honestly, when you actually think about it and think about what a small percentage of this game the Weird Root scenes are, it is kind of remarkable. Like it's how much it has the thematic density of a neutron star. Like,
I mean, I think that especially what's part of what is so effective about it is that, like, as you mentioned earlier, the No Mercy route is kind of just a different storyline for the most part, from like neutral or pacifist Undertale, whereas almost everything that happens in the Weird Route is extremely closely tied into things that are going to be happening one way or another, and it is, I mean, sort of in a way that even in Chapter 4 is alluded to. We're just looking at it with different lighting, like in the second Sanctuary. Literally different writing, actually, in that Chapter 4 Weird Route scene, where when things get really, really bad, the lighting changes. You know, suddenly we are in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And you have this just slightly different angle through which to see all of the same things, and it sort of uncovers all of the darkness that is there, whether or not you're going through with this stuff.
And interestingly, a wind seems to blow from nowhere, which is also a way that, like, the voice's presence was described in the tweets that preceded Deltarune's release, right? Like the
God, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? And so there is this thematic through line with the depths and with darkness in the Weird Route that seems to be, even without the literal existence of a dark world, there is an element of darkness and cold wind blowing that comes from the Weird Route existing.
Yeah. And I just love also how all of the sort of symbolism of, you know, the things that exist when it's darker than dark, that is very much the Weird Route, where you're getting to see it just a little darker, and all of the shapes change just a little bit. Everything is a little bit less defined and more confusing and weird and scary. And it leaves you to let your imagination fill in all of the possible awful things that the various scenes could be implying, some of which we have not touched on, and I don't think we need to, because there's so much.
Yeah. And I think this is a good stopping point for here, right?
Yeah. Well, if we wanted, there's one more thing that we can ask, which is, where the fuck is this going?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I did want to do on the way out, which is I am so scared of Chapter 5.
I'm so excited.
I'm so afraid of Chapter 5. I'm so terrified of it.
I'm ready to throw up playing this game.
Yeah. And I think the one insight that we got, you know, about Chapter 5 was that it's going to be more likely to be in the second half of next year. I
wouldn't be surprised at a Halloween release.
A Halloween release would be crazy, yeah. And so, you know, looking forward from here, it is, so we're gonna have about we're gonna have a year of talking about what exists before we potentially move into getting another bomb dropped on us, a bomb of Chapter 5, which both in the normal and the Weird Route seems like it just has to be incredibly consequential, just based on where we're going.
Could you imagine if it was just like a bunch of penis comedy? I would be devastated.
We're gonna do a silly one. Yeah, that would be.
Chapter 3 was a silly one.
Chapter 3 was secretly.
Chapter 3 was a silly one until it was like the worst fucking shit I've ever experienced.
Yeah. It's like the fucking knight showed up and the secrets were all extremely intense. Like Chapter 3 seemed like a silly one until very suddenly it wasn't.
Everything about the Doom board's so fucking upsetting too.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know. It's gonna be a crazy year ahead. And we are going to, I think we're going to, as we see in a sort of an extended period before Chapter 5, we're going to move to, I think, episodes every other week at some point soon. You know, that was the original plan for this show.
And then we got so excited.
Well, I had just a huge backlog of stuff we wanted to talk about, but we will be over the next few, over the course, sometime in November, we will be transitioning to an every other week schedule versus the weekly schedule that we've been running. But it was great to have you on. Is there anything you want to plug or?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Not a damn thing. I'm nobody.
Right.
Don't find me.
You're doing it for the love of the game.
In it for the love of the game. In it for the love of you, Kate.
Thank you. And it's so lovely to get to talk to my wonderful friends, and I love getting the chance to talk to you and talk to everybody who's come on, and I love you, listener.
I have generally positive feelings about you, listener. I don't know about love yet. That's pretty strong.
I said that, and then I was like, or maybe I don't. I don't know you. Maybe I hate your ass.
It's highly probable throughout the run of this show, at least one person whose ass we hate will listen to it, and that's fine.
If you want me to love you, you can give me $5 a month at groupofshrike.net.
Yeah, I mean, $5, it would go a long way for me.
It would go a long way. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Jackie, and thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the outro. All right, thanks again for listening. You can support the show at groupofshrike.net. You can get access to our first bonus episode where we break down Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. There will be at least one new bonus episode every month. That's $5 a month. You can also join our Discord. You don't need to be a supporter to do that, although you will get lifetime access to a specific channel for supporters if you do. Love having folks in the Discord talk about Deltarune as we anticipate more news about Chapter 5 coming out over the next months ahead. I think it'll be a great place to be. You can also follow the show on Blue Sky, and you can check out our musician Highwell on Bandcamp, including the show's theme is available on Bandcamp. Again, you can listen wherever you get your podcasts, right on the website, in an app, on Apple Music, on Spotify. You can review the show in both those places. See you next week, everybody.
Shrike Amalgamated General Productions GmbH